Hello, welcome crafty Copic friends. I am bringing to you some coloring with a new set from Kraftin Kimmie today. So she did this adorable set, or they are carrying this adorable set with these 4 kids, and they have little t-shirts. And the initial set is this one with the 4 kids, and then these little sayings you can put on their t-shirts, which is really, really fun. You could put awesome mom, lovely girl, cool boy, great dad, or mix and match on the 4 of them. But then you have an add-on set that has then all sorts of fun doodads you can put on their t-shirts. So very, very fun. And you could go crazy with that, obviously. I went ahead and stamped up 4 of these little guys, 2 of the girls and 2 of the boys. I think these are supposed to be younger, and then the other 2 are supposed to be older. At least that's my impression. We've got a mom and a dad and then 2 kids. Mine are just friends or a mixed family. That totally works as well. Anyway, so I've done the 2 kids, and I went ahead and stamped up their t-shirts with fun stuff. I had a t-shirt like this as a little girl. I don't know about any of you, that probably dates me, but we all had a rainbow shirt. Mine was a 3/4 length sleeve, and my friend and I used to pick days to wear it together. But the rainbow shirt thing, and the rainbow, if I remember right, went out across your chest and onto the sleeve, if I remember right. Anyway, it was quite the shirt, and we all had them, and yeah. So I had to do a rainbow shirt. That was not an option. And then the little guy, because I got through my Roy G. B, needed to have the V at the end of the rainbow for me, so he got to wear purple today. And if I thought it through, I forgot about the collar, and so I did her bows blue. I could have done the collar blue and the bows purple, but it totally works. I like the fact that they're completing the rainbow, the 2 of them. So I love this little set, and I am going to put this on a card. You guys would have seen it this weekend if you follow any of my other social media stuff. These guys are going to be on a card that hits this weekend. And then, but the other thing that I love about these stamps, and I wanted to share about these stamps, is all 4 of them would be great for collecting your color choices, like the things for skin and hair, those color combos, because they all have this nice size to them. They're not super, super small. They have enough face to show some shading and shape, and combining 2, 3, maybe even 4 colors, adding blush tones, doing those things. But then also they all have fairly straightforward hair, not super complicated. So you could pick one of them or multiples and do a whole series of skin colors, do a whole series of hair colors. And I wanted to show you kind of one way of doing that. And I wanted to also show you a live version of how quickly you can start collecting those. So what I did is, these are 1/4 sheets of paper. Okay, so this is your 8.5 by 11 cut down into a 1/4 sheet. I can fit 3 of kind of a mom-like figure. The reason I picked her is she is the quickest to color. Her hair is super simple. It's straight, it's a bob, so it's not long. It gives me some dimension with the hair behind her neck, or near her neck, and dropping behind her back. Straightforward, simple face. I can do it multiple times very, very quickly. But what I would do, depending on what size you want to save them, you could do an entire 8.5 by 11. If you did, you could fit probably 4 across the 8.5 way, and maybe 2, probably 3 rows of that going down. So you guys kind of make the choice of what size is easy for you. This one, you could put like 2 hole punches on one side and have this little notebook of small ones. The other way I have started collecting some of these is in like a traveler's notebook size that then you can gather up and collect. You could do it a different direction, punch holes at the bottom, 2 on a page. The issue with creating your own and working with Copic and collecting these is I can't do back and back. And obviously this one has something totally different stamped on it, but because it bleeds through, if you wanted a book to have things on both sides, you would either have to stick them together or put them in little envelope, like clear envelopes that you could put them again back to back and have every page front and back little faces. You can also buy a sketchbook that has Copic paper in it and do the same thing. But again, you need to slide something underneath the page and you're only going to get one side. But these stamps work really, really good for this because they're simple and fast. So what I did is I started down this road. You can see these three gals where I was using light skin tone combinations. It's where a lot of people start. So I wanted to show you some variety using similar colors, but how different they can look sitting them side by side. So I've got an E000, E01. Then I went to an E50 and an E01, and you can see that shift. We still have, she's very peachy and pink in this first one. This is toned that down, but she still has that pinkish undertone coming in on the shading. And then we go to an E50 and E21. Now we've taken out that peachy tone entirely and we go with more, to me, what's more looking like a natural skin tone. It has a little bit more earthy browns in it. So I just feel like that is much better in comparison. So then then I did similar effect on the hair in that I was using some blondes or versions of blondes. We've got a Y00, Y21, Y28. Then I started with the Y21 and added a little bit of red undertone with the YR24 and an E33. That's going to give that earth tone instead. Again, it's adding those red tones, a little bit more brown. And then a last one is the Y00 again and the Y21, which is where this one started. But instead of ending with that Y28, we've got an E33. And I wish those were sitting side by side for you. If I kind of cover her up, you can see a little bit more the difference between the two, where the earth tone versus that Y28, how that changes that. But the last thing I wanted to do, and obviously today is really short, but I just love this stamp and I want you guys to be aware of how great this works for doing this, is show you how quickly you can color one of these up. So I'm grabbing my markers and I already kind of picked out the skin tone because I'm going to stay along the same lines, but I now want to take it. So I'm going to start the way I started this one with the E50 and E21, but I'm going to add a third layer. I'm going to add that E31 and then we will be able to see it side by side and you guys can see how that changes. In fact, I'll leave her sitting right here. So skin first. And especially when you're experimenting with skin tones like this, you could decide just to do her face. You don't necessarily have to do all of it since I've done the rest of it on her other ones, I will go ahead and color the full thing. So I'm going to fill in all of her face, kind of carefully going around her eyes. And remember, this is more a test sheet for me than anything else. She's not going on a card. So if I go outside the lines, I'm not going to worry a whole lot about it. All of the numbering and stuff I've done below, I've done with a Copic multi-liner. E21's the next one I'm using. You could do that with anything since you're not going over that with Copic. I just happen to have them laying all over the place because of who I am. So the other thing about stamping a stamp a bunch of times and doing this over and over is you basically color it the exact same way every time because it's the same face. It's turned the same way. So I shade the same side of her nose because she's turned slightly to the side. We see the profile of her nose. But I can basically color her exactly the same every time. And it gives me a very direct comparison. E31 is the final one. Sorry, that cap is upside down if it's on screen. So I'm going to come in lesser amounts, coming up under the eye, looking for those darkest places on the face. So think about it this way. What is further away from the viewer? That's going to be the eye cavity, like the area around your eyes, sit further back from a viewer. The part that dips inward, think of it that way. And then I'm going to do a little bit of blending. Don't need a whole lot. E21 comes back. The E2 one is much, has a lot more pink or red in it than the E3 one does. E3 one has quite a bit of almost an olive undertone to it. And then I'm going to finish with the E50. I hit those edges pretty hard so it softens them up. It helps blend it into the rest of, but that's the bigger jump, jumping back to that E50. Sorry, I didn't set it down. And on this face, I'm looking at her. I was distracted and I went outside the lines, but oh well. I'm gonna go back to that E2 one, pull that, across there. There we go. And finish that. All right, so there's her skin tones. You can see this will dry and get closer to that, but that next step of where that adds. The other thing you can play with is blush colors and adding that on top. But for today, we're just looking at skin tones. And then we need to pick a hair color. So I'm going to do something similar to this middle one, but I'm going to do kind of light browns. So I'm going to stay with, let's see, I'm looking for, let's do this. We are going to do E21, YR24, and E23. So it's going to be the same as the middle one this time, but it's going to have a little bit darker earth tone, but it'll still have some of those red undertones that this one has. It doesn't have the yellow. All right, so we're going to start with an E. We start at the part and work our way out. And I do not often leave a white highlight. We're going to leave a small one. I'm going to tell you that there's a very good chance that that will disappear. We'll go ahead and color this part in. It's going to get quite a bit darker, so that E2 one is going to disappear behind her. And obviously this is very close to her skin tone at this point. YR24 is next. Now I'm going to get up on the tip of that brush nib. And then start at the part downward, kind of going with the direction of the hair. And then the tips upward, trying to vary the length of those strokes. And then coming in on that area behind her neck and getting that darker as well. And this looks pretty orange at this point, you're going to notice. So that's where this E23 is going to come back in on top of that and really kind of help tone that down. Whoops, didn't get all the way back. Come up from the same spots, usually not quite as much as we get darker, so not quite as many flicks with those darker tones. But I do want to push it back behind her. And I'm going to show you the final step's going to kind of even this out. All right. So I only use the 3 colors, and I want to still tone down that YR. So I'm going to start actually in that highlight area. She's got this nice halo effect, which is exactly what we want, where that highlight hits. Notice it's kind of a ring that would sit around her head. We're going to come back in with that E21, and I'm going to do this light wash that runs right through that highlight area and kind of tones that YR down one more notch. So I'm going to bring this over so you can see the hair color side by side and what happens there. So the yellow undertone versus the earth tone undertone. And you could play around with which earth tone you did there, but you can kind of see when you start collecting these, what can happen, what combinations you really like, which ones you want to save. And what I do with ones that I know I'm going to hold on to is I wait until I find a combination that I know I love. This is a skin tone I want to remember because this is one I will use over. And that's the one I would put on here. These aren't necessarily for my experimenting. When I do my experimenting off to the side and I'm successful and I find one I love, this is where I would put it, is on one of these cards that then I keep and have references to come back and say, oh, I know I had that combo that I really like for that kind of mid-tone or that little bit deeper, darker skin tone. What was that? And I would have a reference place to go back to. I'm not looking for, did I color this really well? Does she look really three-dimensional? It's truly more of a color reference that I can pull out and have a quick go-to group of colors that I know I love, and possibly even skin and hair combos that I know go well together. So thank you, Kraftin Kimmie, for bringing us a stamp set that works so beautifully for this, and also is just super fun with their fun little logo t-shirts. Thanks you guys for joining me this week. If you have not had a chance, stop by the blog over at scrapweaver.com. I'm kind of giving an update on what we're doing with Copic colleges and live classes, and I'll be sending out mailings over in the next few weeks as things change in our currently crazy times. So thank you for joining me today. If you ever have questions, feel free to ask below. Have a happy, colorful day.